and welcome back to Tell Me Your Ghost Story. I'm your host, Cassie Askin, and today we hear Jordan's story. Jordan not only saw, but was followed and seemingly pranked by what she can only describe as a goblin. So I'm not going to waste one more second. Let's hear Jordan's story. Hi, Jordan. Tell me your goblin story.
So 3 years ago, I thought I was being followed by a goblin. It started on a really nice, relaxing spa trip. It was supposed to be really nice and relaxing. It's in a beautiful 16th century mill, and there's a little bit of history to this mill, which I didn't think was relevant, but speaking to a few people, they think it could be. So my maiden surname is Linthwaite, and it's not a very common name. In fact, there's only one family lineage of that name. It's set off into two branches. I did a little bit of family history back in college. It dates back to the 10th, 11th century in Scotland, somehow associated to James I of Scotland. I don't know how. And there's some reason banished from Scotland. Don't know how or why, but likely ended up in England, in West Yorkshire, possibly in the town of Linthwaite, who knows. I'm not from there, but this is where this spa was. So it was a nice coincidence that this spa had the same, in a town that had the same surname as mine. The spa weekend was beautiful. It was very kindly treated to us from one of the girls who just actually recovered. She had a year in recovery and remission of cancer. So she treated us all to a spa trip. There were 6 of us, and we had massages, facials, the whole relaxing thing, 3-course dinner, cocktails in the evening. Went upstairs to bed, played some Heads Up. I unfortunately drew the short straw and had to sleep on the sofa bed in the lounge. I wasn't on my own. There was somebody else in the lounge with me on a separate sofa bed. The room was really old with really tall ceilings. I said it was a 16th century building, and it really replicates that with how it looks. So I had a really rough night's sleep considering it was supposed to be a relaxing spa break. The bed was not comfy for a spa, and I was awake all night, tossing and turning, and it got between 5 to 5:30 a.m. I'm not 100% on the time, but I decided just to stay awake, just to stop trying to fall back asleep. And I thought I may as well go and use the spa facilities, expecting the gym and the pool to be open. I got up and got dressed. I left the apartment. Everything was locked. Everything was closed. I couldn't even leave the apartment building. So I got back upstairs, crept back into bed. I was dressed and just thought I'm going to have to doom scroll on TikTok, but on silent because everybody else is asleep. And how I'm laying on the sofa, my head is propped up on the arm, and my arm is behind my head resting, and I'm just scrolling on my phone. And I start to feel like something kind of tickle my arm a bit. Now, my hair looks like Hagrid's on the daily. It's kind of wild and crazy. And it's usually my hair just winding me up, and I'm just, flicking my hair about. And it happened too many times, and I thought it was a spider. Now, I've had a spider in my hair before, and it's the worst thing to happen. So I did that whole freaky shuffle, tried to get whatever was on me off me to stop touching me. And I sat up straight and looked in the direction of where I was laying, and nothing was there. But as my eyes started to focus, I thought I saw something behind the sofa. Now, the room wasn't completely jet black, but there was no lights on, and it being between 5 to probably 5:45 at this time, I'm not sure. It was a bit hazy, the light was, and I could see outlines and silhouettes. And just behind the sofa, I saw the top of a head, and I immediately felt my heart in my stomach, because it just didn't look like a natural shape to be there. It looked like a head behind the sofa, and it was short. I mean, I don't know the exact height of a sofa, but it's a few feet off the ground, and I could only see the top of it. And I'm looking at it for what feels like forever, and in my head I'm thinking it's my silhouette, a shadow, a reflection being cast from something else. Could it be the lamp on a table? I didn't know what it was. I convinced myself that it was nothing, but my heart was still in my stomach. I was scared for a reason. I think I knew something wasn't right. So if I'm sat straightforward now, I'm looking to the left of me, I decide to lay back down, and my eyes are kind of still fixed on this figure at the left. And I thought, if I move down, it's just going to stay there, and it's going to be a shadow, whatever. But as I lay back down, my eyes are still fixed on it in my peripheral vision, and it leans over the sofa and like appears down. Appears down to me. I've got to laugh because it sounds ridiculous. It appears down to me, and still I'm thinking, this is a funny shadow. This is, just it's not anything. It's not anything. It's in my head. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be an explanation. And I decide to go closer to it to see if I could work out what it is. And that's when I saw, well, the first thing I saw, and it's kind of the main feature of it, was its mouth. Its mouth was like half the size of its face. And it wasn't an attractive face. It wasn't even a cutesy fairy tale creature like thing. It was a ugly, horrible mouth with crooked, broken teeth, broken, like, it was just horrible. It was just horrible. And then it didn't have any eyes, but it wasn't that it didn't have any eyes. It was just I couldn't see in it. There were two set back that they were just black shadows. Its skin was like this silvery grey colour, and its hair was like individual strands on its head. It really looked like Gollum to me, especially with its hair and the colour of its skin. So naturally I screamed. I said, "What the F is that?" Which woke up everybody in the apartment. And the girl that was in the room with me, she immediately turned on the light. I was like, "What is it?" And I said, "There's something behind the sofa." Very quickly realised that nothing was there, and I felt so ridiculous. I was like, "Oh, it's a nightmare. I must have been having a dream." All the girls woke up and we had a very early breakfast that morning. With the rest of the spa day, I think we just carried on. But it was like the talk of the weekend when we got home to see our partners and other friends. We were like, "Oh, it was a great weekend. It was so relaxing." But Jordan decided to wake us all up because she thought she saw something. I didn't say what it was. I just said something was there. When I was with my partner the day that we came home, I said to him, I was like, "I did see something in that spa or in that room." And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I told him what I saw. He was like, "You fell back asleep. You didn't see this." And I just kind of left it at that. Now, it didn't stop there. I don't know if I felt a little bit more on edge than usual, but for a few weeks, I think even a few months, just things were a bit off. I started to feel like I was seeing cats everywhere. The reason why I say cats is because, like, through the corner of my eyes, I'd see things low to the ground, like running past me. So for a long while, I thought it were cats, and things started to topple over, like a pile of clothes, like a pile of washing would fall over, which is something that happens. I get that. But these things were happening a bit too close together, a bit too often. Like picture frames would fall off the wall, or they'd be crooked. I'd be losing things and finding them in really obvious places. I just didn't feel right. Some other like unusual things happened that made me think that either I was doing it to myself or maybe something was happening around me. I couldn't explain it. There was a time when I work from home and I'm mainly on my own all the time, just me and my dog. And I'm working on my desk and I'm on a Zoom call. And there's a knock at the door and it's the postman. So very quickly have to run downstairs. And by the time I come upstairs, my desktop is unplugged and there's like a bit of like a daisy chain of things plugged in. I've got my desktop into an extension lead, extension cord into the wall. And they were all unplugged. And I thought, did I do that? And I was thinking in my head, like, did I trip things? Like, did I go that quickly? Did I pull it out its socket? But I couldn't remember doing things like this. It wasn't, and I thought for a while I was doing it to myself. And to me, that was even scarier. The only other time I saw something a bit physical, like I could actually see something, is a really ridiculous situation. Oh, I think I've got to laugh at it because it being real is insane. We're getting ready for bed. Me and my dog have a normal nighttime routine, and it must be 10, 11 p.m. It's a few months after, so it must be late November, maybe early December now. And I'm not really paying attention to what she's doing outside. I'm just like on my phone, like I always am. And she's growling at the back of the fence. Now, it's not unusual for her to growl because we've got a really open field and there's foxes and she's a dash hound. So she barks at everything. And she's barking, and I'm going like, her name's Wendy. So I'm going like, Wendy, stop barking. Wendy, shush. And then her growl, like, it starts to get really low. Like, and I'm looking at her, and she's kind of like doing that weird things that dogs do when they don't really move, but they get really low and growl. And I started to hear like little taps. And the taps are like something is like coming towards me. It's something small, like falling towards me. And I look down, and it's Peanuts. Now, we have a table at the bottom of the garden that we leave peanuts out for birds. Occasionally squirrels come to it, but squirrels aren't around at that time at night. And I'm thinking, what is throwing this peanuts at me? And at first I thought it was kids, like teenagers. And then I looked in the direction, and I knew from the colour of its skin that it's whatever I saw in that spa. It had like a really muscular baby arm. It must have been, I don't know, like 7, 8 inches long, reaching over this fence. And this fence is 5 foot. And this 2-inch arm, this 7-inch arm is reaching over, grabbing these peanuts and throwing them at me. It wasn't a squirrel. Squirrels don't have a throw that could go that far down the garden, and they're not that big in the UK. If I was in America, I'd say it was a raccoon, because at least they grab things, don't they? So I just saw the colour of its skin, and I was like, no, I'm not dealing with that. I called Wendy. I was like, Wendy, get inside, shut the door, ran upstairs, got in bed, and I was like, what is going on? Like, it just, I started to think maybe I'm hallucinating, and more weird things would happen. Like, I mentioned I was losing things, but things were just becoming even more like odd. Like, I was finding like my hairbrush and my phone in the fridge, found my toothbrush in the bin downstairs, and I thought I was generally going a bit mad and a bit crazy. And I think I was a bit more on edge because I was constantly seeing these small things like go by me. I wasn't really hearing much, but it was all just like sight, like I was seeing things. And I remember speaking to my mum saying, you remember when I told you about I saw that like goblin thing in the spa? I was like, I think something's like following me. I think it's with me. And it's not unusual for us to talk about like spooky things at home. I can't say that many spooky things have happened, but some weird things have happened. And she's been like, oh, get it to do something useful then, and pop your kettle on in the morning, or get it to run your bath before you come home. It wasn't like a scary situation. It was just a bit weird and a bit funny, and laugh it off. And even now, I don't know what it was. But at the time, it was happening, and I didn't want to believe it was anything like supernatural, scary, folklore, whatever it is. But at the same time, I didn't want it to be me causing it to myself, because I think a form of psychosis is more terrifying than that, because I was aware. And I was thinking there must be something wrong with me. At first, I was looking up things to do with my vision. I thought maybe my vision was off. And then I was on a Google spiral. I was looking up like bleeds on the brain, hallucinations, psychosis, mental health disorders. And when I've told this story to other people, that's generally what they think it is. And like I said, to me, that's more terrifying than it being an actual supernatural paranormal thing, because they're minded to scary things. So I'm Googling stuff, and I'm convinced myself that it's me, but in the back of my mind, I think I knew it was something a little bit different and off. And it must be, we're in December now. I'm not sure on the timeline, but it's December time, and me and my partner are Christmas shopping, and he really likes vintage sci-fi books. So we're often in like a dusty old bookshop somewhere, and I don't enjoy being in there. All the books smell, and I'm just like browsing. And we're in an old mill again, in West Yorkshire, in Yorkshire in general. There's lots of old mills, and they've converted them into other things, like a spa, for example. And this one was a bit of like an independent shopping place. And opposite this bookshop, there was a spiritual witch shop. And I would say I'm not spiritual, but I don't know if I believe in like crystals and everything, if that makes sense. But I said, when I posted this video on TikTok, I said that I felt like Bella from Twilight going through my head, like when she does her research on vampires. And I kind of felt like that, thinking like, do I go in there? Do I say something? Do I just go and find like a book? Do I read things? I didn't really want to engage in a conversation about it, because what if somebody was a bit too into the conversation, and I I don't think I wanted to entertain it, but part of me really wanted to go in there. And I walk over to this shop and I'm just about to go in. I'm in like the hallway of this mill building. And this lady's just like a peer. She's really like soft spoken. She kind of does look like me. I don't really remember much about. She just had, I guess, a similar tone to me and similar hair. And she just like kind of softly put her hand on my arm. And she says, I don't mean to alarm you. And I think that would make anybody a bit worried when someone says that. And she says, don't say anything, which I remember. And she said, there's something, I think she said, there's something with you rather than something following you. And I think my face must have said everything. And she said, it's called a low vibrational spiritual entity. That's a mouthful. She says, it likes it when you talk about it. It likes scaring you, but you need to tell it to leave. She says, you need to get a white candle. She said, you don't need to buy it from that shop. It can be one that you already own. It can be one that you buy in a pack of tea lights from the local shop. She says, but go home, light the candle, open your window and tell this thing to leave. Don't blow out the candle. Don't speak about it again. I kind of felt a bit weird after she said that because I thought, how did she know that for one? But also I thought, could she just been like a crazy person? Like, but it was just when she said there's something with you, and you know, there might be some buzzwords that these people say, I don't know, but she didn't want me to buy anything from the shop, so I don't think she worked there. She didn't want anything from me. She just said that. Now I didn't do this thing straight away because I don't think I believed, still, even after everything that happened, I don't believe that anything was happening that I wasn't doing myself. Now, what made me do this ritual was I was having a bath one evening and I think I was watching my iPad and my dog is always 2 feet away from me. And I hear like the door kind of open a little bit and some little taps, like her paws are on the tiles. And I kind of see through my side vision, my peripheral vision, this dark small figure that I think is my dog kind of come in and just kind of like just sit down, stay still, whatever there. And I'm talking to it like my dog, and it's really quick. This situation happened, like it's moments. It's, I don't know how, I put a time in it, maybe 1 to 4 seconds, and I said something like, "We've got dinner in a minute, Wendy." And I look over, and nothing's there, and I just thought, this is getting too. It was just too scary. I thought, I can't be doing this myself. I'm just going to do what this lady told me to do. Like, I'm going to do it on my own. If I feel like an idiot, it's only me feeling like an idiot in the house. Like, no one's going to do it with me. This thing, whatever I felt, it did scare me. And when something happened, I did like swallow my heart, and my heart was beating out my chest. But it wasn't like, it didn't feel like nasty or benevolent. It was just there, and it was naughty. It was like a little kid, or like someone jumping out and saying boo all the time and then laughing after. It was like that. So I get a candle. It was like a little Yankee, I think it was I think it's called like a child's wish or something from Yankee Candle. Little votive candle. And I pop it on the windowsill, I light the candle, and I quickly Google some like spiritual positive affirmations, and I came across something that said like, repeat that you want to fill your life with love and light, things like that. So I kind of walked around the house for a while, and I was like, again, I feel ridiculous talking about it. Like, you can laugh at me. I know how ridiculous it sounds. Like, I always think if it was me listening to this story, I'd be like, oh, okay, nice one. It's just weird to get your head around. It's difficult to comprehend that I actually did this. So I'm walking around the house saying, I fill my life with love and light. You're not welcome here. You must leave. And I wasn't engaged in like asking it questions. I was just saying, you are not welcome. You must leave. You are not welcome. You must leave. And this candle's taking ages to burn out. And I'm kind of like sat back. I've ended up in my bedroom, and I've like sat down on the floor on the carpet, and I'm like thinking like, oh, I'll just sit here and do a little bit of meditation because I like doing yoga and stuff. I'm sat cross-legged on the floor, and I'm like doing some stretches, and I'm still every now and then saying, you're not welcome. I fill my life with love and light. And I don't know if I was just into my stretches or something happened, but after this bit happened, I felt great. I felt like the world lifted off my shoulders. my head like naturally tipped back and I let out a really big sigh, like like that, but it was really, really long. I just felt myself deflate. And then I opened my eyes. It's like, it's gone. I know it's gone. And then it left until possibly about a year ago. um, I spoke about the story in full. I'd mentioned it to my partner that I saw something. I'd mentioned it to my mum, but I never really told anyone the full story. I think just me and my dog probably secretly knew, because she would occasionally like growl at corners of the room, and she'd be like laying on the sofa. She's usually like under some covers, and she'll just randomly growl and then do like a weird like bark and then like look in a direction and then just stop. And I think animals, I've always believed that animals can sense something. If anything, they make it real for me. But I told this story in full, and it was actually on my TikTok. In that one, people say that they can hear things. Now, I didn't hear anything, but above me at the time, it sounded like somebody was walking above me. And I remember in that video, I was like looking up, and I remember like stopping at that moment and thinking, is somebody upstairs? And I thought it was, because at the time, in the house that it happened in, it was in my mother and father-in-law's house. We were living with them before we moved into our own. And I thought he was home. It was coming from his bedroom. So after the video, I shouted upstairs and no one was there. And I walked upstairs and no one was there. And then it got a few people commenting, and they said that they heard things. They said they heard voices. I didn't hear any of that, but it definitely felt like there was somebody in the house with me. And then I kept on feeling, like, you know, when you get that feeling behind your back, like someone's right behind you. I kept on feeling like that. And I thought, I spoke about it when she told me not to speak about it. So I actually did an order online. I thought I need to equip myself with some spiritual gear. So I bought some sage smudging sticks. I bought apparently roses for like protection, something that I might be getting this wrong, who knows. But some crystals as well. And I did the whole thing again. I did it much quicker than I did it the first time. I felt fine. And we recently moved in. Well, I say recently, we bought the house in December, but we officially moved in June to our house. And my house is a really old house. It was built in, I think it's got some history of it, but I think it was made into this house. They extended it in like 1920 something. And we've kept all the original features. We're only the third owner. I think in 100 years, that's pretty amazing. And when I came to the house, I opened all the windows. I did this ritual that the woman did, because I thought, if there is any ghosts, they're going to be living in my house. Wasn't even thinking about this goblin at the time. And I got this rose stick, and I'm walking around the house saying, you know, you're not welcome. You must leave. You must pass on. This is my house now. Like, blah blah blah, talking. And I feel like this house is protecting me. I regularly talk to it. Her name is Pearl. She has the nickname of the Dusty Pearl for all of the renovation work we've had done. She's an old girl. we're doing her up. But I've been regularly talking to the house. I know that makes me sound a bit weird. But if we're away for a while, I'll say like I'm going, like we're going away for a week, or you know, you get some new windows fitted, Pearl, or you're having an upgrade, it's a glow up. And I recently posted my story again on TikTok, which has had quite a lot of people watch it. And what's been amazing is how many people from around the world have had similar experiences. Now, there's one that's kind of like stuck with me, one thread of communication, and that was to do with my surname and how I think things have unfolded after that. So, as I mentioned in the start, my surname is the same name as the town that the spa was in. It's not an unusual name. And some people have been saying, I mean, I've had some stuff in my DMs that they're like, they want to do a cleanse on me, and they've said loads of stuff. And I don't know, some of these people on TikTok, that I wouldn't trust them if they say that stuff. But then there's this couple of people that they're not related, but they've been saying the same kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's a bit, like I said before, it's a bit more than a coincidence when these people are saying the same things when it doesn't relate to them, and it's all kind of personal to me about my name and my surname. And they've said, a couple of them have said, like, do you have any marks on you? Have you been to that town before? And one of them said it could be something presenting itself to you, this goblin, thing, this creature that was associated with your ancestors in the past. And I thought that's a fun bit of coincidence. That's a fun little story. I'm gonna use that. Let's say when I tell, it's a fun story to tell, and it's a funny one as well. When someone said that, I was like, yeah, maybe it was something, because I do like my family history. My surname Linthwaite is obviously on my dad's side. It's my maiden name. My dad is really into like history and reenactment, and he did all the whole family crest things years ago. So we've got a good family history. My family name and my family history, and this thing being a familiar. And then somebody else said, do you have any marks on your body? Something unique to you? It may be a freckle or a mole. It will be perfectly symmetrical, or something that you've noticed about you, because that's a witch's mark. Now, I've been watching Agatha because it's on Disney Plus at the moment. And I'm like, yeah, I like witches. It's Halloween. And it reminded me of something that happened when I was in my early 20s. I think I was about 2021, and I was having a facial. Again, at a spa. It must be when I'm really relaxed, these things like to happen around me. And this lady, she's giving me a facial, and she says, is there anybody, she said, is there any witches in your family? Oh, it caught me a bit off guard. I was like, no, there's no witches in my family. She's like, well, you've got the witch's mark. And on my eyebrow, I'll send a picture, I've got 3 in a line freckles. And I just thought it was a bit unique to me. I don't have any of the other freckles anywhere on my face. It's just between my arm and my eyebrow, I've got 3 of them. And then somebody said that, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. But what made it even more real and coincidence is my sister on my dad's side. We don't really see each other that often. They're a lot younger than me. She has exactly the same 3 freckles on that side. I thought, if that is something to do with our heritage and some weird bloodline of witches, then it's to us, because there's 4 sisters on that side, so I guess we're a coven. But me and my sister, her name is Sapphire, we're the ones that say that we look the most alike. We're the 2 with brown hair. The other 2 have blonde. So then I just thought, what if there was something like back in like whatever century, like 10th, 11th, 12th, that happened in the town of Linthwaite. Our name's Linthwaite, and I arrived there in this, I don't know. It's just a nice bit of history, and maybe it's related, maybe it's not. That's the bit I like the most about the story.
Huge thank you to Jordan for sharing her story. I'll link her Goblin Story TikToks in the description, and you should go follow her on TikTok. I'll link her page as well. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, follow the pod wherever you consume it. Follow us on Instagram for photos from the show at tellmeyourghoststorypodcast. If you're listening to audio only, the video version of the episodes are always up on YouTube, and we got some fun stuff going on over on TikTok at tellmeyourghoststorypod. If you have a true paranormal story you'd like to share, please email it to tellmeyourghoststorypodcast at gmail.com. Until next week, my friends, good night to all, and to all a good night. Bye!